Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I know there's a lot of stuff going on. I know there's people driving over people and all that stuff. I'm going to refrain from covering those events because there are plenty of other channels that do deep dives on some of these events. And we did that early on in the channel. We did a lot of coverage of like the Boston bombing and all that stuff. And to me, because we weren't there, it's very hard to extrapolate what these people are up to. Now, we did cover the United Healthcare shooting only because there were some very direct references to the whole Mario Brothers thing. If I have anything, new to offer or connected into something we're already talking about in terms of the programming, then I'll usually cover these events. But outside of that, there are plenty of other channels to go to get caught up on these different events. Now, the fog, I understand everyone's talking about the fog. I'll put a link to this particular story that has some highlights about what people are saying about the fog. Again, my forte isn't collecting people's personal experiences and sharing that on the channel per se. I'm just not that good at it, you guys, and I already get overwhelmed with a lot of information. Other channels are good at it. They're good at, posting their email and having people send in a lot of information that they can then display on the channel. And that helps people get a real feeling for what's going on. Prime example is the fog, right? So if you're a channel that does that, hats off to you. That's actually really good because somebody needs to be reporting on what people are experiencing in particular. Now, what we're going to talk about today is something that is also just as profound as some of these other events. Sometimes I believe these events are distractions because behind the scenes, they are marching us towards a total police state. And once that is in place, there won't be anybody reporting on their personal experience anymore. So we have to raise awareness to this. We have to, bring people to an awareness of how our privacy, they're inching towards complete technological control, and our privacy is going to fall apart. It is falling apart. Yes, I believe some of these things are distractions. We already know they make us sick in the winter, and the fog apparently, and you can always tell what the honey traps are and what the distractions are because they allow those things to go viral. Even smaller channels reporting on this stuff, their videos are up in the 50, 60, 100,000 views on some of these and into the millions for some people on TikTok. So there's plenty of other information is my point for you guys to go out and seek if you're interested in that. Today, we're going to talk about the bipartisan effort. Listen closely, the right and the left inching toward this technocracy. And this is not good because once this is complete, there won't be a YouTube channel called Enter the Stars anymore. They will shut it completely down because no one will be able to resist them because they will have complete digital control of everything. And that's what they're heading towards now. Today, one of you in the comments section a few weeks ago reminded me of a TV series from nearly a decade ago. The TV series is called Wayward Pines. And I had vaguely remembered the plot of this, and I thought I had decoded it, but when I looked back on the channel, I couldn't find anything on Wayward Pines. So I started rewatching this TV series from 2015, and I couldn't believe how accurate it was to what's happening right now. Now, 10 years ago when this TV series came out, this would have all sounded ridiculous, right? There was no wall that Trump built. There weren't drones flying everywhere. There weren't all these things. There weren't biometric face scans back then. Remember, it was a big deal in the truth community. People were trying to talk about biometric face identity, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's 100 years off. That's 50 years off. That's never going to happen." And then it sounded so crazy because we would see it in the movies. We would see an actor in the movies sticking their face into a face scanner or a retinal scanner. Remember how we used to talk about this as something way off in the distant future? Well, it's happening right now. This is why we can't get amnesia, because gradualism is how these people start to pick away at our rights. Because here we are in 2025 with biometric face scans for real ID. Listen carefully. In 2025, real ID is now required for domestic flights, unless you have a passport, which is essentially the same thing. You take a passport photo, which uses a special camera to get a high resolution image of your face. Here we are in 2025 with drone surveillance by many police departments that aren't even trying to hide the fact that they're surveilling us with drones. And of course, the recent outbreak of drones. We also have a physical fence, the wall. We also have an electronic fence, which is tied into the wall, your cell phones, and these drones. And these networks and cameras, we saw it on display with the manhunt for Luigi Mangione. They said his face was picked up on like 500 cameras. The electronic fence is here. We would have never thought that this was the case, but you're going to see all of this on display in a TV series from 10 years ago. Now, what they also depict in the TV series, and I'm going to show you clips of this, they depict illegals being basically characterized as a zombie horde coming over the wall. Now, this is all based on the programming, right? And there are about 100 other metaphors to what's happening right now from this TV series from 10 years ago. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, the plot centers around these people who find themselves stuck in this small town. After they get into like a car accident, there's usually some kind of amnesia. They can't remember everything. They find themselves in this town, and the people in the town seem normal and nice. But every time the person tries to leave the town, their advance is blocked. And they do it with a smile on their face. They're like, you can't leave. And it becomes apparent that there's no way to leave the town. Now, the reason they can't leave the town is what you would least expect. The people in Wayward Pines aren't in the year 2014. They're in the year 4028. And humanity has evolved into a zombie apex predator. And the only humans left are those inside the wall, who were awakened from a cryo-freeze to try to restart civilization 2,000 years later. That's the plot of the series. Now, I believe that the zombies outside the wall is how they want us to view illegal immigrants. Because that level of fear in the TV series is what justifies the surveillance state inside the walls. You guys, it's all happening now. On the precipice of the Trump presidency. Now, I'm not making excuses for illegals. I'm simply telling you why they have hyperbolized the illegal threat and why they themselves, the controllers, have created the very threat that they are telling us to be deathly afraid of, right? So don't fall for the fear tactic, because that is what will drive you to allow for the surveillance state, which is exactly what happens in the TV series. Let's jump right into this. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Wayward Pines.
Get out of this rotten, insane town.
It's just a town.
You didn't make it too far, did you?
How do I get out of here?
You don't. You didn't make it too far, did you?
Before we do anything, we're gonna have to take out your microchip.
My what? Can't they track us in here?
I've hidden in here before with the chip. I think the thick stone walls disrupt the signal.
This is the same technology they use to track animals. You got anything to close this wound?
Just duct tape.
It's better than nothing. Who's your president?
Bill Clinton.
You ever heard of Obama? 9/11.
When I first woke up here, I was so disoriented that I believed them when they told me I lived here.
Look at these tombstones. There's no names, no dates.
The more you see, the less anything makes sense in this town. And now I just keep my head down, I go to work, I go home, and I know this isn't my life. I remember walking around in this fog with no competing memories. In this fog, in this fog, in this fog.
Are you awake yet? I hope you are. And as you just heard, everybody is chipped. We're almost there now. They've already biometrically identified most of us through Real ID that Trump endorsed. Because when this series first aired, there was no Real ID, was there? There was no national federal identification. And now every state has implemented the Real ID. It is required for domestic travel. And we'll be covering that headline tomorrow for 2025. The next stage will be microchipping. Once people get sick of constantly being required to update their facial scan as they age, they're going to just go, you know what? You already have my DNA. You know who I am. I've already given you an image of my face. Why don't we just chip me? This is what's going to happen. Now, in the series, there are cameras and microphones all over the town. They're completely surveilled. That's your cell phones. They're just waiting for enough computing power to process all of the data. People have already given their consent for their phone mics and cameras to be accessed, haven't they? Let's keep going.
With no competing memories. Eventually they came back. It didn't take me too long to realize that it was the fear that keeps everybody in line here.
Why did you bring me here, Peter?
Now, here they are, the sheriff and Peter, standing outside the electric fence. Now, I wouldn't be shocked. Now, I'm not going to say mark my words, but I wouldn't be shocked if the next stage in the wall on our southern border is electrified at some point. Remember, Trump said, I'm going to give you guys so much electricity, you're going to want me to turn it off. So what's stopping them from plugging the wall into an electric source and turning it into an electric fence, just like in the TV series? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Now, that one I'm not too sure about, because that would be really shocking for a lot of people. But guess what? People will accept it because they've totally bought the lie about the border. The border has been hyperbolized. It will be the segue. It will be the link, the linchpin that people will give up their privacy to secure the border. Mark my words on that one for sure. They're already doing it as we speak. And this is very important because we don't want to live in Wayward Pines, do we? But it's happening while everyone's distracted with strange fog and UFOs and shootings and people driving cars through crowds. This is happening step by step, and we're allowing it to happen because people are asleep. Now, here we get the first clues about the purpose of the fence as the sheriff is talking to Peter. Listen to what he says.
Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out.
Now, next, you're going to hear, well, actually, let's play this out here.
Electrified fence? With an electrified fence? With a microchip in my leg?
Oh, it's just a town.
Just a town. Okay, so you want me to sell my house?
No.
Now, next, you're going to hear a handy sook clue. And I'm saying that slowly because I'm saying it wrong. So you have to rearrange the letters and understand what I'm talking about. Because this was 2014. This was 2 years after Handy Sook. And remember how many of the victims' families in that town got free houses that closed on Christmas Day? Well, watch, because everybody in Wayward Pines gets a free house for playing along.
You want me to give him a house?
I want you to give him a house. Think of it as a welcoming present from his friends at Wayward Pines.
So you just get to move in and start living your life. Remember, everything that you see here is yours. You get to keep it. And the best part is it doesn't even cost a penny. Doesn't that sound great? What do you say?
What's going on with you and Harold's girl, huh?
Now, next, you're going to hear how this all works, because obviously they can't police everybody, right? They can surveil, but they really need the input of the citizens, don't they? They need the input of each one of us. Okay. So in addition to being surveilled with cameras and microphones in their homes, each citizen is basically convinced that if they help the hidden hand, they help the hidden authority, the controllers, that they'll be rewarded for their loyalty. So they police each other. Now, we've warned about this as well over the years. You've heard my increasing frustration with tattletales and rats and people telling on each other. And we've seen it magnify over the last decade, haven't we? Because why? Because they've been putting up, bombarding us with hotlines to call in for rewards and manhunts all over the news. And if you go to any kind of law enforcement website, they'll have bounties and rewards for telling on people for different things. I mean, it doesn't even have to be breaking the law. It could just be something else. See something, say something. That is a new phenomenon. So see how it's all happening now? Everything in this TV series is happening right now. And they were programming people to accept it in the TV series. Yes, it's called the snitch system, the doctor says. Now, let's keep going. Here, you're going to listen. You're going to hear this guy talk about how, hey, I've been watching you. I know that you've been talking to so-and-so.
What do you say?
What's going on with you and Harold's girl, huh? I see you two talking all the time.
That was the gas line and Huck.
Now, what else is going on? Well, this next part is very, very important, because the controller not only uses surveillance to keep everybody safe, he uses fear and drastic measures. They even have public executions in Wayward Pines and mysterious gas explosions to take anybody out who's too close to the truth. The controller also uses intimidation and gaslighting by accusing people of misinformation and conspiracy theories. Does this sound familiar? Now, this guy you're going to see next with the glasses, he's the hidden controller. He never shows anybody who he is, but he's basically like the Wizard of Oz.
That was the gas line, and how come the asphalt wasn't damaged? Only thing exploded was the truck.
Had to be a bomb.
We should be careful not to spread rumors. When a disaster like this occurs in a town as beautiful as ours, it's natural for folks to ask questions, but
It's a question of keeping people alive. Freedom or safety.
So you heard that. Basically what he said was conspiracy theories are dangerous. We don't want to upset the peace. And pretty soon, anyone who has a theory outside of the official story will basically be labeled as a terrorist. They'll say your ideas are causing violence. This is what they're going to say. Even if you're a peaceful person with fresh ideas and an open mind, and you tell people violence is not the answer, they won't care. They'll say, nope, sorry, you are radicalizing people. Your ideas are dangerous. And this is what the controller says here. And then you heard him say peace and security by giving up our freedoms. And this is what I've been trying trying to communicate to our truth community for some time now. We're inching towards a complete implosion of our privacy rights. And it seems like everyone is distracted. Because once our privacy is gone, this is when the true dystopia will begin in plain sight.
Not both.
Whatever you're trying to do here, it will never work if you keep people in the dark. And who anointed you to make that choice?
I did. These are dangerous times for all of us. Everything we've risked our lives for will be destroyed. People are fragile. They need time to adapt. They accept change gradually.
They accept change gradually. And there you heard the controller explaining that people won't be able to accept the truth about what's outside the walls. And that the only way to enforce change is through gradualism. Now, we understood this secret agenda a long time ago. The concept of gradualism. This is how they do it. It literally lulls people to sleep as they inch towards and encroach into our rights. They do it slowly. Now, some of us have the gift of seeing past time, don't we? We have very good memories of the way things used to be. We feel every encroachment upon our rights and our humanity, and we try to ring the alarm bells. But understand that most people are not like us. Most people just accept life daily. They don't think about the past too much or the future. They don't think about how it affects them directly, and they think there's nothing to see here, move along. Meanwhile, if they only would wake up, they would realize that they have all the power. And what I mean by that is when you step outside the right-left paradigm and you hold people accountable simply by just speaking your opinion, instead of thinking that it's going to hurt Trump to talk bad about him, instead look at it as holding him accountable as a conservative. True conservatism means all this stuff that we're losing our privacy about, that should have been challenged a long time ago by conservatives, right? But instead, people are too busy attacking us for calling Trump out instead of seeing that he's leading us right down the very same road. This is how they do it. They do it by dividing people, by getting you to think, oh, Casey must be a liberal. He says so many bad things about Trump. Don't think about it that way. I'm holding him accountable. I am far to the right of Trump than you can ever imagine. He's not even a true conservative because he wouldn't be doing some of the things he's doing, right? So that's what this is about. Now, what you're going to see next, you're not even going to believe. And I say that facetiously, of course. People get hung up on the weirdest stuff on this channel. Someone leaves a comment, oh, you keep saying that. You keep saying, well, because most people won't believe it. But you guys will understand it. Several years ago, we uncovered the secret cult of Alpha Omega. Remember that? The beginning and the end, the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet. And I think we first realized this when we decoded the film Omega Man from the 1970s with Charlton Heston. And that was the first, clue that I had that something was going on with the Alpha and the Omega with the controllers. And we realized that Alpha Omega also means disease and cure. Let's play some of this and you'll see how this fits into Wayward Pines.
Security must be tightened. Protocols reinforced. We're entering a time of war where new rules must be applied. So stay alert. Stay vigilant. Report anything suspicious. Everything we've achieved has been due to your hard work. But we're battling terrorists.
Now, Alpha and Omega. This is the Wayward Pines Academy, and their insignia is the Alpha and the Omega. What is this about? Well, they are encouraged at Wayward Pines Academy to procreate, even very young children. And it's pretty sickening how they just depict this in plain sight. So, what does the Alpha Omega represent in terms of Wayward Pines Academy? Well, obviously, it's a phallic and a womb, isn't it? Procreation into the cube or the octagon, as you can see here on this logo. You can also make out the number 88, 8 sides within an 8-sided cube or octagon. You guys, the Alpha Omega cult is trying to replace God, who is the true Alpha and Omega. The false Alpha Omega is Apollo, which of course is Trump. And this whole pandemic ritual was an Alpha Omega event by the controllers. It was the Apollo disease, and then the cure was offered, or what they called the cure. Wow. So the Alpha and the Omega in this instance also represents fertility, which is the main theme, as I just told you. The children go to the school with the sole purpose of being indoctrinated to procreate. They are called the new generation. And they're supposed to accept the life that they've been given behind the wall. And they're told, oh, we're putting all our faith in you because the adults can't make it work, because they repeatedly self-sabotage because they can't let go of their memories of the past. So the new generation is supposedly the cure. And look, they got the pine cones, so that would represent the seed, right, of the pines. And this is how you know what Wayward Pines really means. Wayward Pines are the trees, aren't they? Trees are people. The pine cones are the new generation. Now, what other Alpha Omega aspects are there in the TV series? Well, as the adults begin to self-destruct, the secret leader simply shuts the power off, which lets in the illegal alien zombie horde over the fence. It wipes the slate clean, and he starts over. And he does this like 2 or 3 times. As soon as he feels like he's losing control, he just shuts the power off. In other words, he becomes the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end of this world of Wayward Pines. Let's take a look.
What happened to the power?
So, as you saw, the zombie horde comes over the wall. It has to represent the fear of illegals. This is why this has been ramped up for the last couple decades, because it will be the catalyst for the final mark, the biometric ID, and the police state under Trump. They had to create the problem, then pretend to try to solve it, and then they gave us Biden for 4 years to drive the nail in and turn the knife. And then they're going to now pretend to resort to more drastic measures, which will involve the surveillance state, just like in the TV series Wayward Pines. There will be drones, surveillance, digital identification for the illegals, and then that model will be applied to all Americans. And now you know why they ramped up all this fear about illegals. Now you know why they never really fixed the problem when they easily could have. I gave our solutions of how to fix the problem a long time ago. But they had to dehumanize the illegals into a mysterious apex predator, just like in Wayward Pines. They had to make you believe that they were likely enemies of America from Iran or China, stealing, killing, destroying, raping, drug dealing, ganging. And when I put it to you like that, you have to admit that it's been hyperbolized intentionally. Not to say that there aren't some of those elements in there, but they created it on purpose so it could be like a zombie horde in your mind so that you're willing to do whatever it takes to fix the problem. The illegals are the zombies in Wayward Pines that justify the means to power and control. Now, why have they been dragging this out? Well, they needed more time to get the powerful networks installed and the supercomputers that are going to be able to manage all this data, the very supercomputers that we're helping to build. They had to get the drone network up there and loosen up the drone laws. This is why Trump loosened up night drone. He signed an executive order in 2017 to allow for drones to fly at night away from their controller, out of sight. It's all there, you guys. They had to make sure the computers were in place. They had to make sure they had the biometric real ID in place. The fence is closing in around us, and we're distracted in our truth community. Trump has everybody he needs now in his cabinet picks, all the technocrats and billionaires. And now we get to sit back and watch in 2025 as all of this unravels and unfolds. Because we failed to hold Trump accountable the first term. Not much we could do about the Democrats, right? They're going to do what they do. But we should have held Trump accountable in the first term. We can try this term, but now he says he has a mandate. So he's going to do whatever he wants with little resistance, and anyone that says anything, they'll just basically portray you as a Democrat and everybody will hate you. That's what they'll say. No matter how many times you say it, no matter how many times I tell you I'm not a liberal and then I'm far right of Trump, you won't believe it. You'll just say, oh, you're a Democrat. That's why you hate Trump. He's for freedom. No, it's just the opposite of freedom. So, what does Wayward Pines mean? What does the title actually mean? Well, pines are trees, as I said earlier. Trees are people. Wayward Pines are the people inside Wayward Pines, the self-destructive controllers that have gone the wayward way. Now, if I thought I was effective at warning people about what's coming, they would have taken me out a long time ago, right? But they don't need to take me out. Why? Because the algorithms do that. You'll notice that our videos, even profound videos like this, stay stuck under about 6,000 to 8,000 views. That's it. And it's all the same people. We never reach outside of our core group. No matter how accurately, how powerful, how visionary and forward thinking that the daily shows are that keep coming back around full circle, they won't let us through because they know if people knew what was going on, there would be change. But my job is done here. I did what I promised to do for the Most High, which was to wake up every single day and show you what he's showing me. And that's all I can do. Now, that was all of season 1, and I'm well into season 2. But as with many of these series, once they cast the spell and they fictionalize the truth, because that's what it was a fictionalization and hyperbolation of the truth. And when they do that, it ritually messes with your head and you don't think that it's happening to you right now. This is why I title the shows It's Happening Now. It's to try to snap you out of the hypnosis. I don't do it for sensationalism. I don't really have to be sensational because what I just showed you is shocking. It should snap you out of it. But even seeing that, people will fall back in the right-left paradigm. There, Casey goes again, Trump derangement syndrome. They're not seeing what's actually happening because they still have emotions attached to these people that they think are advocates for them, and they're not. So season 2, I'm well into it, but it appears as though they must have handed it off to other writers because, and this is typical, you'll get about one season that's really accurate and good and actually exposes everything. And then season 2 is more about just driving in the programming, right? So in season 2, it's a little bit different take because the youth take over. The youth take over the town. The youth from the Wayward Pines Academy. And they're supposed to, and they're given all this power. And they go nuts. They start doing more public executions. Now, oh, Casey, we don't have public executions yet. You really? You don't think we have public executions? Well, I'd say give it 2 weeks. You'll hear about a huge gas explosion that just so happens to hit in one house, explodes the house, but all the houses around it are left intact. Or you'll hear about these manhunts. And the people that get tracked down are pleading not guilty. They're saying that something is wrong, that they didn't do what they said they did. People, they find them in McDonald's with all of the evidence needed to convict them when the person had 2 weeks to throw, a 3D printed gun into a barrel fire. Could have walked around down any alley in America and thrown the murder weapon into a fire, a trash fire, and melted it to nothing. Come on, you guys, wake up. Wake up. And they just found him with a manifesto. He could have easily gotten rid of all that stuff, right? Throw it into a fire. And then they would have never been able to definitively say that that was him in the videotape. He could have said, that's not me. Right? I mean, come on. Easily could have gotten out of that. But instead, we're supposed to believe they caught him with all the evidence that was needed to convict him. He was just carrying it around with a bright orange hat, drawing attention to himself. So, season 2 is about the youth taking over, which I also believe will happen soon, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Because as the population ages, and they say peace and security, which means no more wars, then what are the youth going to do? Instead of joining the military, they're going to join the domestic mercenary force, which will, of course, fulfill biblical prophecy about children turning on their parents. That's what's going to happen next. I don't know how long, what the timeline is for that, but the Bible says that that's what's going to happen. So that's what's going to happen. And that's what I'm thinking the scenario will be. The youth basically joining these domestic mercenary forces to maintain law and order. They'll be the ones tracking down all the surveillance activity that they pick up. So I'll stay on season 2. And if there's anything else to report, I'll be back with that on Sunday. But let's see. Tomorrow will be Between the Headlines. Cocaine gophers. And you got to wait to hear that story because it's actually pretty funny. Also, heat-sensitive alligators. Exploding electric cars outside of Trump Hotel. Also, Elon Musk has just admitted that he's a keck frog. So now we have 2 frogs. We have Trump and Musk. These have to be the frogs of the swamp of Revelation. Frogs coming out of the mouth. They're literally admitting who they are now. They always have. But people forget. They forget. And they make excuses because they don't want to say anything critical about Trump. Because they think that gives the Democrats power. And this is how they do it, you guys. This is how they do it. All right, I'm in the chat for a little bit. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. Yep. Gates is the 3rd frog. You know, what's weird is they kind of look like frogs. Wow. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? But it's kind of not funny. Because it's literally, they're telling us. We already knew that Trump was depicted as the keck frog. And now Musk is calling himself Keckimus Maximus on his Twitter account. Yes, Trump is the chaos magician. The more they come at him, the more the Democrats pretend to come at Trump, the more power he gets. The more people believe him. So, and that's another part of the magic. The Democrats are actually helping Trump, because the more they come at him, the more they call him names, the more power it gives him. Until you hear it from a conservative person like myself, you won't believe it, because you'll be like, why are the Democrats? That's the magic. That's how the magic works, you guys. That's how the ritual works. It does something to your brain. It makes you fall asleep. So, Grimes is claiming to explore Christianity to stop her destructive habits, says Lanessa. Thanks for that. Swamps are homes to frogs. Yes, Julia. Using psychology on the masses. Need a bot filter, says Dude. Yeah, that's Rebecca. She should be like timing people out and deleting them if there's any bots in the chat. Thanks, Marion. Marion says, thanks, Casey. Good show. Rich get richer, poor get poorer ritual. Cray Cray started listening at the beginning of the pandemic. Trump has stocked the swamp. Georgia Guidestones told everyone what they had planned. Yes, that's why they had to destroy them. Everyone is asleep, dreaming the American dream. Yes, Gary. All right. They're all Kabbalists. Sorry, can't speak this morning. The more you make, the more they take. And that is actually very, very true. Okay. I used to make good money back in the early 2000s as a pharmaceutical rep. The more you make, the more they take. People around you expect a higher lifestyle because of the type of job you do and your income. You have to pay higher insurance premiums. You live in a bigger house with higher taxes. It's like almost not even worth it anymore. I mean, unless you're filthy rich like these billionaires, which I don't want any part of that either. Because everybody that I know that has that much money, all they do is sit around thinking about their money all the time. Their money is their job. And who wants to do that all day? So, yeah, if you haven't already, oh gosh, I wouldn't even recommend the film, actually. The Story of Trump, The Apprentice, Roy Cohn. That was a disgusting movie, but I believe it was highly accurate of what really happened. Not to say that wasn't happening in other circles and with Democrats. Again, not an attack on Trump, but all these people were doing these things back then. But it's a film that will leave you feeling dirty afterwards, so I would not recommend that film. So, they're incentivizing UBI, says Sheldon. Who's doing that? The Democrats. We know the Democrats are. Their money is their God. Yes. Money is a drug. Yep. Now, I'll give you an example. You know, I love my mother very, very much. And there's people in my life, and I'm like, things could be much simpler. But it's like people don't want the simple. To them, that's giving in or giving up or compromising. They think it's compromising, but what it really is true freedom. It's true freedom. My electric bill went up because it's been cold. And at first I was like a little bit angry about it because I try to, my electric bill typically is about 60, 70, 80 bucks a month. But then in the winter, it goes up to like $140 a month. And I'm like, why am I complaining? Why am I even worried about this? So for an extra $100, $150 a year through the cold season, that's nothing compared to other people's monthly bills. And you realize that you're blessed to be in a simpler life. My little cabin here is less than 1,000 square feet. It feels bigger because it's got a deck outside and I put lots of windows. But guess what? It's a lot cheaper to heat the cabin. And it's plenty. It's enough. When did we get to the point in America where we thought we needed bigger and bigger houses and nicer cars? That's a spell that's come over America. Simpler is better. Always. And we have to count our blessings, don't we? That God allowed us to see that simpler is better. All right. Less is best. All right, you guys. Well, tomorrow will be a little bit lighter show. We're going to have some funny stuff. I love telling you guys funny stories. A lot of you guys got a kick out of the fishing story. 14 inches got to be 14 inches. 24 inches, 24. Do I hear 30? Do I hear 30? 30 inches, 30, 35. Keep 5. 5's the limit unless you have 4. 4 of one brown, 4 one breed, one species. Let it go. Give it back. Catch it again. That's what I had to deal with when I tried to go on a fishing trip. Better get out of here. Here comes fishing game. Run, 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 run. Bad boys, what you gonna do when I come for you? So we got to laugh sometimes, right? And if you didn't hear the fishing story, that was day before yesterday's show. If you want to go check that out. Oh, gosh. I mean, this is what the rules are like. Have you ever tried to go trout fishing before? Got to have a trout stamp. If you don't have a trout stamp, it's $7 for a trout stamp. If you don't have a trout stamp, fishing in these waters, don't go into the headwaters of the headwaters. 100 miles below the dam, 50 miles below the dam. Catch this fish. No hooks, no barbs, no treble hooks. This is what it sounds. This is what it is to go fishing now, you guys. You literally have to bring your attorney with you to catch a fish that you paid for to have stocked in the rivers and creeks. And these governments should be ashamed of themselves. And this is what goes to show you that it's not about the fish in conservation. It's about control. And it always has been. It's about control. They want you so disenfranchised with taking anything from nature and so afraid to break a law that you didn't read right out of the manual that you're just going to give up. And then they'll just be able to, when they find that, they'll say, only 2,000 people in this area purchase fishing licenses. So we're just going to go ahead and shut the fishing license system down. Sorry, no more fishing. Okay. See the problem here? It's always about control. Look, if the people are catching too many trout, then stock more trout. Okay. They're stocking them several times a year. Just put more trout in the river. Let people catch and keep what they want. And this is in rural Arkansas. So you can imagine how much worse it is in places like California, where the liberals live. It's probably 10 times worse. I talked to a guy that used to live in California, or lives in California now, was a neighbor of mine, former neighbor. And he said his fishing license was almost $100 for his fishing license. And that's just fishing. That does not include hunting, which you might as well just give up in California. I mean, in order to go hunting, you're talking several $100s, and it's ridiculous now. Ridiculous. And that's not with no guarantee of even catching anything. Now, if you're not a hunter or fisherman, I see some people tune out when they hear that. Look, understand this isn't about hunting and fishing. This is about your right to the earth that God gave us. Okay. And your right to take from it for free. This was our birthright, not government's, our birthright. Okay. So anyways, what else? Can't fish the headwaters, don't fish the headwaters. 14 inches, barbless hooks, no troubles unless you're on such and such creek and such arm and such 100 yards from the dam. Oh my gosh. They want control so they can force you when they turn the food off and they say, okay, no food unless you get the mark, right? And you're like, okay, whatever. I'll just go shoot a squirrel or catch fish. Nope, can't do that. That's what this is about. It's about control. They don't want you surviving outside of their control mechanism. And the easiest way to do that is to be self-sufficient, right? They don't want that. Wow, $800 a year. That's great. Their electric bill there for a Golden Lion. They have to raise them 2 years to release a trout, so it's expensive. No, not really. You know how many millions of dollars they're getting from fishing licenses across states? Okay. If they can afford Fish and Game to pay these guys $100,000 a year with Glocks and bulletproof vests and $100,000 trucks with computers on the dash, if they can afford to do that, then that means that they can afford to make hatchery trout. Hatchery trout are not that hard to make. Now, if someone's not paying, if they didn't get their fishing license, I can understand someone getting a fine for that. Okay. Because you're basically paying for fish to be let out into the rivers, right? So that you can catch something with some consistency every time you go out. I get that. But there shouldn't be a bunch of rules on what you catch when you've already paid for it. That spills over into control. Sorry, but it just does. Yeah, hatchery trout are not hard to produce. All right, guys. I'm gonna pop off of here. I've been on here for a bit. I love each and every one of you. I hope you had some fun at the end of the show. We'll be back on here tomorrow. Take care and be safe, everybody.